Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing Cell, a fan favorite character who was introduced in the arc bearing his own name, who in my estimation is not only my favorite villain, but the absolute best villain that the entire Dragon Ball franchise has ever seen. And really, the perfect villain, if we're going not only by name puns, but also by everything else that comes together in the amalgam that is the character of Cell. So let's get into that right now, as I'm going to break it down in depth why I believe he's the best villain, beginning of course with his introduction. Now, unlike a lot of the villains in the Dragon Ball story, when we were introduced to Cell, he wasn't the most powerful of anyone out there, nor was he necessarily the biggest threat at the time. Cell is more of an example, as you can see in this picture, of evolution. A character who goes from literally being crafted from the cells of all of the different characters in the story to being, an egg, a pupa or larval state, and eventually his imperfect self, but he wouldn't stop there, no. When he was introduced, it was by far one of the best introductions in the Dragon Ball franchise, where this entire town of Ginger Town was completely wiped out by this character as he walked up holding a rich man in his hand, who he then drank and, consumed all of his essence using his tail, and then immediately proceeded to speak to tell Piccolo that he knew exactly who he was and that the two of them were brothers. And this led to an awesome fight between the two of them, in which what ended up happening, well, all these people started to feel Cell's energy. But interestingly enough, they started to sense other powers as well that were there on display. When Cell revved up his power, we immediately hear that one of them rivals 17 in power, which of course was Piccolo, but then we find out that Cell has this energy within him that so many people are sensing as that of Frieza, of King Cold, of Goku, of all these characters, and why exactly is that? Well, that's because Cell is actually the incarnation of all of them. In a single body, he was created by Dr. Gero and his supercomputer in order to be the ultimate biological being, the ultimate android, and someone who would one day achieve his perfect form. This is what separates Cell in many ways from many of the other villains, because of the fact that the second that we see him introduced, he immediately already takes and borrows everything from every other character at once. The first move that we really see him pull off is the Kamehameha. And everyone's shocked because of the fact that this character, who never trained under Master Roshi, who is using the signature attack of the main character Goku at this point, uses it against Piccolo and is proven to be a really powerful threat, who immediately is able to take away Piccolo's arm, which to his knowledge, he wouldn't be able to regenerate, but I don't know why he thought that. That's a whole other can of worms I discussed in a plot holes video you could check out in the top right on my video right here. But the thing is that we get to learn more about Cell's backstory, what led him being to exist in the first place. And this is where he explains that his name is Cell. He's an artificial life form created by Dr. Gero's computer, and long ago the good doctor began experimenting with creating a life form out of samples of the cells that he gathered from great fighters. But progress was slow. He put it aside. His computer, however, never gave up. And then we actually see who he was made of. And what do we see? It was cells from Son Goku, Piccolo, and Vegeta were harvested, as well as, of course, the cells from King Cold, Frieza, and a number of other beings that were put within him, so that, as a result, Cell not only had the powers and the cells from all of the greatest heroes at the time, but also the greatest villains. Cell was, by his very existence, an amalgamation, a combination of every single thing in the story up until this point in time. And he was going to take that even further by also consuming, to achieve his perfect form, the two big main antagonists who were already introduced in this arc, the ones who devastated Trunks' future and kicked everything off in the first place by killing off all the Z fighters of Android 17 and 18. So Dr. Gero not only created Cell to be the perfect life form, but after he had created 1718 in order to do his bidding to defeat the Z Fighters and Goku and to dominate the world for him, he also created Cell perhaps as a contingency to then consume the two of them, especially if they ever killed Cell in the future, and then in turn become the ultimate perfect being who could, in essence, bring about the universe's end, who could, in essence, be uncontested because of all of the powers of the most powerful beings at the time that he represented. Narratively and in terms of in-universe, this is what makes Cell such a great villain, because he is everyone that we have ever seen up until this point in one being. He represents Dragon Ball as a whole. The good, the bad, the strongest, the most unique, all of the powers combined into one being. He is basically the plot incarnate, which is why he's able to accomplish so much over the course of the story. Cell is basically, one of the biggest themes of his arc is causality, of defying the future, of fighting against evil, of all of these different beings that wiped everyone out in the future. And can our heroes stand a chance? Can our heroes be able to overcome time itself? And Cell, in many ways, is kind of the incarnation of that, of the time the story took up until this point, and of the dark future to come. Because look what happened here too as a part of Cell's backstory. When Cell woke up in the future, 17 and 18 were gone. Cell spent years walking around in the future, searching for the androids, wiping out and, drinking and absorbing the different beings that were left over, the remnants of humanity who were just trying to survive and rebuild after everything had been destroyed. And he found out that the Z Fighters, or Trunks in this case perhaps, was the one who defeated the androids. That he doesn't really know how it happened, thinking it might have been the remote shutdown device, but what exactly happened? Well, Cell wasn't just going to take no for an answer. He wasn't going to give up, because he's a pragmatic villain. And so as a result, what did he do? He killed Trunks. He killed the last remaining remnant of the Z Fighters, of the fighters with powers who were able to defend the Earth in the original timeline. Because remember, Cell is from the original timeline. He isn't the Cells of the main timeline counterparts and everyone that we see. He is the original Goku, the original Vegeta, the original Frieza, the original King Cold. All of these beings in one being, the original Piccolo, together. And he's the one true powered survivor of that original timeline who pursued across space, time, and multiverses in order to be able to achieve his ultimate goal of perfection, killing Trunks, coming back in time, and then in turn going to achieve his perfect form. But of course, like I said before, Cell was not immediately the most powerful character. He gets overpowered by Piccolo. He decides to, in turn, run away. And then what does he do at that point? He absorbs more people into himself. And so at that point, he's able to become so powerful that he's able to, in turn, show back up. And what does he do? He is able to enact on what his plan was. He goes in there and he absorbs Android 18 into himself and achieves his semi-perfect state. And then he becomes the most powerful fighter in that dimension at the time. And so he's able to overcome, dominate everyone who stood any chance against him before, and then at that point, move even closer to his goal. However, again, Cell was not going to remain the most powerful fighter at the time. He still had the goals, the objective of achieving his perfect form by absorbing Android 18 within him. However, at that point, Vegeta, Super Vegeta, stood in the way. This powerful, bulked up form of Vegeta and his Super Saiyan Grade 2, who just wrecked Cell, who could have easily killed him at this point. However, because Cell himself is part Saiyan, because he knows of Vegeta and the Saiyans and their weakness, what exactly does he see? Well, he sees that Vegeta is disappointed because he thought that he was so powerful. However, he then uses Vegeta's pride against him. So he tells Vegeta that if he becomes complete, if he becomes perfect, that he can win. He'll be invincible. Power, speed, skill, mental strength. He'll be perfect in every way. And that's what the computer had told him. So he uses this pride, this arrogance, this lust for battle that Vegeta has in him against Vegeta in order to, as you can see right here, you Saiyans are a warrior race at heart. You love to fight. The stronger opponent, the greater the joy. Am I right? You want to try me out, don't you? You want to see my completion. And so what does he do? He is able to then let Vegeta, well, given to his own weakness, because he could have defeated Cell, but he allows him to become perfect. And at that point, Cell achieves his ultimate perfection, his biggest power-up yet, before, later on when we see when his fight against Gohan, and he achieves his goal. At this point in the story, Cell had won. And this is something that a lot of people don't really think about. Cell not only became vastly more powerful than every other character when he became perfect, able to utterly wreck Vegeta, as we could see. Vegeta uses moves like the Final Flash against Cell. He kicks him as hard as he can in the head. Nothing works against this guy. He blasts him in half, basically, and what ends up happening at that point? Well, Cell just regenerates. And as a result, Cell is able to overcome Vegeta. Then Trunks, he bulks up in this form like we see that Goku doing in the time chamber, with Toriyama contrasting the two of them against one another. He goes and, Cell explains to him that power isn't everything, because Cell not only is perfect in terms of his power, but also his speed. And so he's able to overcome Trunks, the remnant of his timeline, in a sense, the one who basically kicked off the story, and then in turn could easily kill him. If Cell wanted to at this point, he could blow up the planet. He doesn't have to let Trunks live. He doesn't have to let Goku and Gohan get out of the time chamber. He is the victor. However, because Cell is the embodiment of Saiyans, of Frieza, of all these beings who want to test themselves, who want to show just how powerful they are, he at this point allows them to do that by allowing Trunks, what else? To train, to be able to defeat him. As you can see here, Goku's train, you'll meet him soon enough, and he'll do what I failed to do. Cell is intrigued by this, and he allows it to happen. And then what we get here is more insight into who Cell is and his personality. Cell, wait, what's the point of this tournament, Trunks says. What do you want anyway? I don't understand it. Do you want to take over the Earth, the galaxy? And what does he say? I want to confirm my superiority and spread some fear over this world. It'll be good practice too. What do I want? Nothing material. I was created to kill Son Goku, but there's little point to that now. Maybe I just want to have fun, and the greatest fun is to see people's faces contorted in terror. What, Trunks says, terrified? Yeah, just like that. So Cell, of course, at this point has absorbed Android 17. And what does Android 17 and even Android 18 want to do? They want to have fun at the expense of their victims, of mortality. They were created also, or augmented, to defeat Goku. But they want to do it in the most fun way possible. Now, a lot of people, like I said before, think that Cell becomes a boring, generic villain at this point. They oftentimes say that Cell, after he becomes perfect, doesn't really have anything interesting about him anymore. And I think that that's actually completely incorrect. I think a lot of people are overlooking not only the themes of this character, but also everything that he represents beyond that. Cell, like I said, could have won. He's basically just doing his victory lap here, but it isn't enough for him to become complete. He needs to test it. He needs to show his superiority, and he does that against the main character of the story at the time, the one that we followed throughout the entire franchise up until this point, at his most powerful, after training for over a year, Goku, who at this point has already accepted that he cannot defeat Cell no matter what he does. And that's something that actually is proven correct, because the two of them have this awesome battle where Goku hits Cell with every single thing he possibly can. He even hits him, he's so much more powerful than everyone around him. Everyone is admitting that he is the most powerful aside from Gohan, which we'll go on to see later on as a result. And, he hits him with everything he can, and we see even more explained about Cell and his and what he's doing at the time. Goku was going to be hit by a Kamehameha that could have destroyed the Earth if Goku didn't get out of the way, if he didn't jump. And so Cell said that he knew he would. He could destroy the Earth without batting an eye. It'll just cost him fun. So again, he's just trying to test himself at this point against the greatest fighters that make up his body in the first place, of overcoming them in the original versions of them, in a sense, so that he can represent the ultimate perfection of every single one of them simultaneously. And we see Goku hit him with everything he can, even including the ultimate awesome attack of the instant transmission Kamehameha. But nothing works. And so as a result, Cell makes Goku do something that no real villain has ever done before. Goku gives up. He says he loses, and as a result, he surrenders so that somebody else can step in. Cell is significant here not only because he's so powerful, because he is the amalgam of all of the other characters in the past, the heroes and the villains, but simultaneously because he shifts the narrative in two different major ways when he shows up. First off, Cell becomes the main villain of the story after he arrives in the narrative. He takes that spotlight, that title, away from Android 17 and 18. He takes it for himself so that he can instead be the ultimate perfection of Dr. Gero, so that he instead can be the ultimate revenge, the one who could take on the power that he wields in order to not only overcome the universe, but also, remember, Cell also can asexually reproduce. So he could destroy everything and rebuild it in his own image. He is the ultimate villain in that sense, in a way that many others, or most of the others, are not even capable of being. But he also changes the narrative again when he actually forces Goku, the main character, to step aside so that somebody else more powerful, who the entire storyline has been building and showing hints of over and over and over with his hidden power, can step up and become the new hero, the new main protagonist, the new main character, and that is Gohan, as we see right here. The son of Goku, who at this point was already more powerful than Goku, as they state right here, because everyone constantly forgets this or just ignores this, especially Goku fans, that he is already more powerful. He says right here that Goku is doing his best, but to Gohan, it looked like he wasn't trying because Gohan was already more powerful than Goku. I know I have to say it like that because so many people ignore this, but we flat out see this. Everyone is shocked at Gohan's power, and Cell even confirms it. Perhaps what Son Goku said wasn't just a bluff after all. So he is the ultimate representation, too, of another character stepping up to overcome everything before. Gohan, when he fights against Cell, isn't just fighting against a villain, a powerful guy. He is also fighting against every single thing that came before. All the heroes, all the villains, all the storylines. Gohan steps up in the ultimate passing of the torch and achieves his greatest form yet of Super Saiyan 2. And at this point is able to dominate and decimate this guy, to make him look like nothing even at his full power, as we see right here, and to put him down as a result. However, Cell doesn't stop there because he keeps coming back. He doesn't just give up even though he's at the brink, even though he's at the edge. And eventually, Cell also does something in his desperation that, again, no other villain truly was able to do, aside from if you count Piccolo as a villain at that time, which is killing Goku in a definitive way. Not just in a way to where he'll come back soon. Don't worry about it, guys, even though in the next arc he did, unfortunately. But he does it in a way to where Goku has to bravely sacrifice himself, firmly cementing that he's no longer going to remain in that main character slot. Instead, that Gohan will, and goes to King Kai's planet, and in turn is blown up and wiped away. And so Gohan has to step in order to overcome him. There is no other option available at this time, and not even that. But Goku's actions only made Cell better, because Cell is the perfect embodiment of not only the characters, but all of their powers. It's like Dr. Gero's computer was somehow able to take everything within Cell, every single different component within him, and actually augment them to their maximum capability possible. He was able to, as a result, make Piccolo's regeneration come out to its absolute maximum. Now it's not just that he can regenerate arms or limbs or little holes as long as he has some energy. No. If he has that core still remaining in his head, or, wherever it was when Goku vaporized him, then what happens? Well, He at that point can come back stronger than ever with the cells of the Saiyans. He could survive anywhere because of Frieza's cells, and he then in turn gets even more powerful than before. So that is yet another reason why Cell becomes so powerful. And then through the combination later on that we see of not only Gohan's power, but the guidance of Goku, the former main character at this point in the story, we see that Gohan is eventually able to overcome Cell in the Kamehameha clash, and, has a little help from Vegeta too, the former ultimate rival of Gohan's father, the one who ended up being a villain at first, and Vegeta, and defeats Cell, wipes him out, obliterates the perfect villain, and in turn steps up into that position of being the greatest hero of the time, the one who can come about. And Toriyama knew from this ending right here and now that this was really the best way that he could wrap things up for a lot of these characters and really transition to something different. Goku is gone and he chooses to remain dead. Vegeta right here states that he's going to give up on fighting because not only was he utterly defeated and surpassed by the father and son, but also because Goku sacrificed himself and denied him his victory. So all of this really came about because of Cell. Cell changed everything in the story. He led to massive shifts in the dynamic where Goku decided to leave. Gohan took over in his position, which, do I have to show that frame again every single time I mention this just so the people in the comments won't say, oh no, he never was the main character, Mike. Goku always was. It's only about Goku. Dragon Ball is only about Goku. Except for all the chapters where he wasn't there or even mentioned. But anyway, Cell made all this change. He changed up all the dynamics, and in turn, that is why, not only in terms of his powers, not only in terms of him having an awesome design, not only in terms of him being a character who was able to defeat the main character, defeat every other character in the story, despite every power-up, despite all of their plots coming together and converging, but he was the greatest villain in the bookender of really the best portion, or really the best period of time in the Dragon Ball franchise, as it were, from the start up until the end of this arc, when realistically everything should have ended because Cell was the best villain that we ever got. No villain after him really even came close, with the exception of somebody like Baby, for example, who again borrowed a lot from Cell. And as a result, maybe Toriyama would have just been better off ending the story here, especially because we get two perfect endings, again, involving Cell, the perfect villain. Because not only does Cell get defeated by Gohan, but he also gets defeated by future Trunks afterward. Having the story of Trunks come to an end as well, with a happy ending in which he's able to obliterate Cell after obliterating the android, stopping the infinite loop of him going back in time, causing more timelines to be created, and then in turn, as a result, making it so that everything wraps up in the perfect way. The way that we see the story end originally with this arc is with Trunks and Gohan, the next generation, stepping in, stepping up, ensuring that their world will be there, defended by them, as you could see that Toriyama wrote right here. And as a result, everything came to an end with the defeat of the perfect villain, which is Cell. So that for me is why Cell is the best villain and the perfect villain in the Dragon Ball franchise. But let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Do you agree or disagree? Also, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
And you better subscribe!